Hello, my name is Jenson. I'm a professor of political science at the Université de Montréal, where I have the research chair in citizenship and governance. Well, pluralism is a concept that is very important in our contemporary societies because it's a word or a approach to thinking about and managing diversity in societies. So many societies have multiple forms of diversity. Sometimes we call them pluralist societies. And it's important to make a distinction between a diverse or a pluralist society and pluralism, because pluralism is the way of approaching and dealing with diversity, the way being that there's an active demonstration of respect for difference, respect for diversity, and appreciation of that diversity. So it goes well beyond tolerance, putting up with or accepting that people are different, but not valuing it. There's a positive value placed on the presence of diversity in the society. So that's my basic understanding of pluralism. It's a way of thinking about and acting in diverse societies. Well, that's a very large question, and it requires a bit of historical background. After the Second World War, in most of the countries of what we now call the global north, but basically Europe, North America, there was the development of a new set of rights that went alongside civil rights and political rights, the right to vote, and civil rights being basic human rights. Alongside those two kinds of rights, there was a third set of rights developed, which we call social rights or social citizenship. And they were understood as support that the society gave to all of its members, forms of social solidarity, help for those who were in need, and practices of sharing risk and sharing advantage. So that's the basic notion of social citizenship, is that it's an expression of social rights in the same way that political citizenship is an expression of political rights. Why is social citizenship even relevant for pluralism? It's relevant because one of the drivers of pluralism, this respect and valuing of diversity, depends upon a basic set of social conditions and social rights where you agree to solidarity across groups. So you agree to share the benefits of society, to share well-being across all members of that society, not simply your own ethnic group, your own religious group, your own cultural group, but across all who are members of the society. So in Canada, social citizenship involves the sharing primarily across the country because of the differences we have from province to province in economic resources and economic possibilities, but it also involves sharing between new Canadians and more established Canadians, sharing among white Canadians and Aboriginal Canadians, sharing across all of the cleavage patterns, and thereby creating a sense of and a reality of social solidarity. Now, in some pluralist societies in which divisions are deep and pluralism in the sense of acceptance and recognition of the value of diversity isn't present, in those pluralist societies, patterns of well-being or of distribution and redistribution are confined to groups, so that there's a reluctance to share with new immigrants. There's a discussion, for example, in in places, some of the countries of Europe, about how the welfare state should not be used to, or should not provide benefits to new immigrants. That people are coming simply to benefit from the welfare state. I obviously don't agree with those kinds of analyses, but that there is a sense that of what we call welfare chauvinism, where people don't want to share. Welfare chauvinism is the notion that the benefits of social welfare programs, of things like health care, of education, of unemployment insurance, those kinds of benefits should be guarded, and I use that word deliberately, it should be guarded for the majority, for the mainstream society. And new immigrants or refugees or asylum seekers or people from away shouldn't have access to those kinds of benefits and shouldn't be seen as part of the group to whom solidarity is owed. And this is therefore a reduction of or a reduced way of thinking about social citizenship, because social citizenship was a notion that everyone in the community, no matter their background, no matter their time in the community, should benefit from that social solidarity. So in places like the United States or places in some of the countries in Europe, like the Netherlands, you begin to see a demand to exclude from benefits, from receiving benefits, these other outside groups that are seen as not part of the mainstream. And that, I think, is a way of weakening pluralism in those societies. The pluralism depends upon not simply a level of well-being or economic development, but also the institutional mechanisms for spreading the benefits in a fair and solidaristic way. I would say that the major challenge to managing diversity that we face actually today in these times is the political payoff that comes from not being pluralist, from not promoting pluralism. This is what political scientists call in their jargon the power of a wedge issue. That it's possible to construct a political coalition and therefore gain political support and even win elections by dividing rather than by uniting, by appealing to a limited part of the population, a limited portion of the electorate, rather than having a broad appeal, trying to appeal broadly to as many as possible. And the use of a wedge issue is a divisive political strategy in a society that's characterized by diversity, and that perhaps in the past had been constructed around principles of pluralism, because it starts to divide. It starts to divide into categories, into communities, into segments. And what we've been seeing in a number of political locations in Canada, whether at the national level, at the provincial level, we've been seeing the political parties understanding the electoral benefits of constructing wedge issues and in fact employing them for their partisan benefit. But the consequence of that goes beyond the immediate election. If you start to use wedge issues for an election, the framing of political issues and the framing of political conflict goes well beyond that particular election. You can't take it back. You can't say that we want to have, as was said in Quebec over the past year, that we want to have a charter of values that in effect appeals only to Québécois de souche, the basic Quebecers Francophone, long-time origins. You can't say that for the election and then the day after the election say, oh, and we believe in interculturalism and multiculturalism, and you're all Quebecers. Those kinds of framings carry through time. And so to the extent, and Quebec is not the only place where we've seen a reliance on wedge politics and the use of wedge issues. And so I think that a challenge that Canada faces is the tension between the electoral payoffs of that kind of strategy and the maintenance of a basic Canadian philosophy or set of Canadian values about pluralism, therefore the respect for difference and the notion that all Canadians are in it together. And I think that would be one of the major tensions that I see these days. You can't say, oh, we were just doing it for this election, but that's not really what we believe. Or you can't say, we were just doing it for the election, and now let's do something different now that we're in government. And that's sort of what's going on in Quebec now. They're trying to backtrack on the charter. The charter was used as a wedge issue to try and win the election. It didn't work, and now the Parti Québécois and other Quebecers who supported the charter are trying to reframe the debate or reframe discussion back in the direction of previous positions that were much more supportive of the Quebec version of multiculturalism, which is called interculturalism, much more in terms of a civic nationalism. But building that position of interculturalism and civic nationalism took many years. It was built. It produced a society which was very welcoming, which was very plural, committed to pluralism, and that was destroyed, and it will now have to be rebuilt. You can't simply put the lid on the box and say, "Oh dear, we made a mistake."